This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
In a world of capes, lunatics, god monsters, of heroes and villains, one small group of time-traveling robots, inhumans, and some red-blooded American humans as well, stand against all that threatens the Earth. They are the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and this is Nuff Said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tonight, Season 7, Episode 12, the penultimate, take a drink, episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And what I want to let our listeners at home know, we're breaking up the two episodes of the series finale. So, first you'll hear Episode 12, and then, and only then, you'll hear Episode 13. In 1 week. And then we'll talk about the future of Nuff Said and where we go from here. Alrighty then. I am your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey Mozz, welcome back. Oh man, it was a roller coaster. It was a lot of emotions, a lot of feels for those of us that have been here all 7 seasons. And I think even for the people that just came, I think there was a lot of heart in this episode. And, we'll talk about next episode next week.
Yeah.
Tonight's episode, Season 7, Episode 12, The End is at Hand. Sybil attempts to get the location of Fitz from Gemma's memories, while Cora turns against Nathaniel. Meanwhile, the S.H.I.E.L.D. team attempts to stop Nathaniel's plans for anarchy, and the Chronicoms attempt to rewrite history. Chris Cherami is our director of this episode. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, of course, get those based on Marvel Comics buy credits. Jeffrey Bell and Joss Whedon. Oh, Joss Whedon came back for this one, along with Jed Whedon and Marissa
Tancharian.
I'm sorry. Okay, so they shoved Jeff Bell as the written by, but then it says written by and then it says Joss Whedon, created by and. Okay, so I guess maybe Jeffrey Bell and Joss Whedon both wrote this one. I don't know. And then Joss, Jed, and Marissa Tancharian. Yeah, that sounds about right. Got the created by credits. Of course, that regular old story editor is Mark Leitner. And who is lording it over Mark Leitner? Our executive story editor, George Kitson.
Mm-hmm.
Man has done a lot of great work for this continuity. Let me tell you that. Alrighty now. This is a pretty, because of course, it's a bleak start. Let's be honest here, because it opens up with essentially. The villains have won. This is Empire Strikes Back, Yeah. Hans and the Carbonite, every S.H.I.E.L.D. base in the world has been blown up by space lasers. None of that is what you wanted.
No. I mean, and all of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in there. That's, thousands of people dead.
Entirely possible, man. I pray to goodness that Roxy Glass still lives.
Oh man, I didn't even think of that, but
I know, man.
Wow.
Although I kind of got the feeling that the Chang brothers that something we see in the next season suggests the Chang brothers survived, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that next episode. So yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping all of Max people got or not Max Deke's people got through, because we know Deke's. Well, that's what we'll go to. Man, so much to get to next episode, but this episode, the penultimate episode, man. Okay, so now I got to remember exactly where this one ends, so we don't drift into the next episode. That's how.
Maybe it is a good idea to just do it as one. It seems like it's going to be hard not to talk about it, and people that are watching it as it comes up. I don't know.
On the fly here. We're doing it on the fly here, Mozz. You get me talked into one way to do the show, then in the middle of the show you change it. So let's.
Well, hey, I mean,
what the last scene of this episode was?
Let me see. I've got it here. Let me see if I can get there right quick.
Because if I can know the last scene, I know where to stop and where to go. So.
Let's see.
Yeah, I don't think they go to the. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. So, what's his name shows up wearing the Ant-Man mask, and then they cut to Sybil with the time stream saying this will be the last time they work together. The end is near. Like she's the one that's about to win.
Oh, okay. So okay. So they get to the bar. So that's good.
Yeah.
So that tells me everything I need to know to get to the bar, because we got to get to the bar this episode. Which means a lot of stuff happens this episode. This episode really is just about, and here's what I'll say is this is everything that's leading up to the final episode. And then the final episode, in many ways, kind of almost comes off as, I don't want to say it this way, because there's a lot of great little scenes in the next episode.
Sure.
But almost like the next episode is like that final battle in Endgame.
Right, but I don't know. It just seemed like it made it too easy for those things to come to fruition. The eventual turn of one character to the other side or something like that.
Well, but
would have been really nice. But if you don't see any of the motivation for why it would have happened, it just doesn't.
I think you get that in this, and
I mean they tell you what it is, but you don't get to feel it. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel right. It just seems rushed, and it's like, oh, okay. Now it's like, and then there were a ton of different things that just seemed like rushed along for convenience sake, because we know this is where the story needs to end.
Okay. Well, let's get to this episode.
Yeah.
We'll see how long this takes. If we fill up the entire episode with this, then we'll do the next episode and the next one. And so that's how you'll know. If we get through this one real quick and then we get to the next one, where clearly Mozz is going to complain about it. So stay tuned for Mozz's negative review of the final episode. We'll deal with that there. But in this episode, city's destroyed. Everyone's trying to. Simmons and Deke have been captured, and I'm trying to remember. Because Daisy... Oh, okay, yes, yeah. Because Daisy is down with... So in this storyline... Where's Daisy? So Daisy is with
Daisy, Mac, and Sousa, have gone over to the Chronicom fleet.
Right. So Daisy, Mac, and Sousa, they're not in the Zephyr, they're in the Quinjet.
Right.
And they managed to silently dock with the Quinjet as all the chaos is happening. And for what it's worth, you can see a strong argument here that, Nathaniel and what's his name? Why am I blanking on his name? The guy that can teleport now.
Right, but I can't think of it either right now, but yeah.
Yeah, none of them are watching what's going on. So they're able to sort of sneak in.
Well, also, I got a sense they sent, how did they get their signal to fake like it's coming from the surface of the planet? And they shoot torpedoes at it, and was it like a hologram or something? Or
no. Well, that's in the next episode.
Oh, okay. So that's what I thought they fooled them in. That's how they were able to dock, because they thought that...
No.
I guess that was the next episode. Okay.
No, that's the next episode, and that's something else that happens.
Oh, all right.
And we'll talk about the next episode. And this might be a problem, Mozzie, is you're confusing certain parts of it. Perhaps. And what they do in the next episode is actually a little bit brilliant, in my opinion, because they're timing things according to previously seen events, because we're looping back around in time here.
No, yeah, that part was cool for sure.
But in this case, what they're doing is they're just ignoring them because they're blowing up all the things. And what it is, and we see this later with Daisy, trying to get to Simmons, is if it's not their main concern, they're not worried about it. The Chronicoms aren't going to bother with it if it's not part of their plan.
If it doesn't affect the percentages.
Exactly. So in their minds, it doesn't take. It would be a disruption of their plan to shoot them out of the sky. Now, granted, obviously, this is probably not the best plan from their perspective.
So this was their Achilles heel. They trusted the time stream too much.
Well, exactly. They trusted that it was, as it seemed, a giant Rube Goldberg device.
It reminds me of when Michael Scott was listening to his GPS system telling him to make a right, and he drives right into a lake.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. you got it. That's why they say, don't do that.
Technology, might be really, really good at things, but I mean, you got to trust your common sense every now and then too.
Well, that's why we'll never have.
But they are robots, so how could they not listen to the GPS? I guess that's
exactly. Well, this is the classic conundrum of AI. Is AI truly self-aware, or is it simply a very complex program?
Right, a really good approximation.
Yeah, exactly. Is it? And this is essentially the problem with the Turing test in its own way, because obviously we say, the Turing test. If you can pass the Turing test, that means you're a legitimate AI. It's like, actually, no. If you pass the Turing test, it just means you fooled people into thinking you're an AI.
Right, but is that not the benchmark?
Well,
I mean, is that not the only benchmark that we can be responsible for?
Well, I mean, obviously, what it comes down to is, if it can pass a Turing test, if it can seem human enough that you don't question its humanity, then yes, that is, and for what it's worth, for the way we use AI, that's all it needs to be.
Perhaps.
That's the thing. It's like we're not really looking for AI to actually go fight battles.
Right, and we're not
run
trying
over
to
children in the street, and also to tell us a joke now and again.
Right. Like, we're not trying to mimic creation. We're simply trying to
have something
build a tool.
Exactly. And in this way, what it is, and really what we can see in this, and it's sort of a Borg collective kind of problem, where clearly Sybil has some autonomy, but she controls the others. So it is an autonomy of herself. And that is, if nothing else, this, as with Nathaniel, is the crux of the problem. Because as Nathaniel says, I want to, I'm trying to end the tyranny, but we see that he's really just a fascist who just wants to be in charge. He's a fascist who hates all the other fascists.
I don't think he does hate the fascists. I think he wants to be them. He's jealous of the fascists.
Well, exactly. And in this case, his anarchy is a useful tool. And this is I think is the classic issue when people espouse anarchy, which, in small doses I have no problem with. But too often, anarchy is the catchphrase of those who actually don't want actual anarchy. They just want all the current archies dismantled so that they can instill their own archy. They're not anarchists, they're other anarchists. And that is what Nathaniel is he is another Arcus, and to that extent, that is also what Sybil is. She is another Arcus. She is going to help him because he is bringing something to the table, his humanity, his ability to do things, his ability to steal superpowers, and take other people off the table.
Right, and it seemed interesting to me, like, she used to have this other general who was very critical of her decision-making. And I was like, why does she put up with him? Why does she feel the need to explain herself to him? Why does she feel the pressure and the responsibility to do that? And the same thing again here with Malik. He's constantly questioning her decision. Why does she keep him around? I was like, why doesn't she just kill him? And it just dawned on me now, it was probably her trying to have some sort of a checks and balances kind of measure to say, I know I'm not able to do the things that a human can do. I can't see things that a human could, and maybe I need them. And that's why she kept them around, specifically to be contrarian and to have that sort of input. But she was too hypnotized by the solidity, I guess, of the decisions coming from the time stream that she couldn't stray away from it.
Yeah, but for what it's worth, the time stream is constantly fluctuating, and this is an interesting quality of the time stream. So, and this is actually something that's been discussed before, and one of the things that this really gives us is it really gives us the answer to the question of how the time stream works, which is that, yes, every time you go back in time, you're creating a branch. Now, there is the secondary question of, well, if you don't, that if you make a ripple, not a wave, does that disrupt time or not? I kind of feel that at the end of it, we get the idea that, no, every time you go back, it is classic Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect timeline where it's just the act of going back creates an alternate timeline. Whether you changed the past or didn't change the past, you went to the past, and that you were in the past is the alternate timeline. Now, there is this other theory that, yes, if it doesn't change things enough, then you can hop back out of the past, and it was that you had always gone to the past. But in this case, and there is an argument to be made here that, and in fact, I think it's a strong argument to be made, from what we get throughout this, that essentially, they were in the main timeline after the first jump. That they saved Malik, and all those things were meant to happen. Enoch was always meant to go back in time. Enoch was always meant to engage the Konings and to establish that speakeasy as the S.H.I.E.L.D. safe house. And really build out this story in a way that... I mean,
he had a copy of the time stream himself.
Well, we don't know... Well, yes. Yeah, don't... No spoilers! No spoilers!
Oh, I mean, alright. Sorry.
Come on, because I want to make this two... I like the idea of making this 2 episodes. So...
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. I thought... the way they painted it, I thought that it was an old school thing that everybody already knew that he already had. That's how it was painted, because I don't remember if it happened in an early season or not. But it seems to me like he said, yeah, I lived with Neanderthals for 300,000 years. Like, of course he had the same access to technology that the Chronicoms did. So, I don't know, it just didn't seem like... but that was supposed to be a surprise. Oh, interesting.
Well, yeah, it is a surprise. So, anyway, but that's okay. That's okay, Mozz. That's one spoiler. We won't worry about it.
All right.
In the case of him, but the idea is, because that's the thing, I don't think that, so I get the feeling that everything that Enoch was supposed to do, he did. And so within the timeline, within the structured timeline, Enoch was always supposed to get left behind. Although I think even in that way, he was annoyed by it, but he was also, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. It's like if Enoch had made it back to the ship, it would have been like, well, this is new, and this is not what I expected. But it would have been like, this changes things. As it sits, Enoch doesn't go back to the ship and does what he's supposed to do. Establishes himself, which, also makes an interesting discussion about all of the previous times we've seen Enoch in this storyline, where, okay, so was he always okay with being left behind? Was he really not bothered? Because we always assume, because he's always has that very nonplussed cadence, we always assumed that, well, he must have really not enjoyed it. But of course, then again, we're imposing our own emotions on the Chronicoms, and they don't have emotions, even though they, or at least they don't dwell on their emotions. That's the thing. Enoch has friendships, and Enoch makes a choice to honor those friendships. As we saw when he sacrifices himself, he says, I have known many beings. This is the first time I really miss you guys, This is the first time where really not being with you has been problematic to me. And so it makes for an interesting tale in how it plays out. And it suggests that Enoch always went back in time, was always there in S.H.I.E.L.D., and was always this person in the background, which suggests why Coulson knew to call him. Although one could also argue that they probably programmed Coulson to know to call him. That's the other thing with Coulson. But, so and then what happens after that is, so they save Malik, and then what happens next is the Chronicoms stay behind after they interact with Phil, and that's when time branches. So if the Chronicoms hadn't stayed behind to interact with Phil, Tristan, put everything away now. No, the milk, the sodas, everything, the apples, yes, don't leave everything laying out. Sorry. No, you're not sorry, you got caught. Children. Anyway. Yes. I don't know. He's making himself a little, soda water cocktail where he's like mixing soda pop and soda water to make it, a little bit of a more robust drink. And that's delightful. Yeah, Apple's back too.
Did you say there was milk out too? Is he making an egg cream?
No. He just took the milk out. He actually he still hasn't put the soda water back, so he's got to find every places to put everything. And it's fun. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, but when the Chronicoms decide to stay, make a choice to stay, that is when they disrupt the time stream and the time stream branches. And essentially what Sybil is doing with her time stream, where she's observing the time stream, is she's observing that, it branches, and when it branches, now it's a new time. It's a new timeline. And that timeline is not necessarily problematic. It's just, this is the new timeline. And we can accomplish our goal of getting rid of S.H.I.E.L.D. by following these things. And then the agents have to keep chasing her throughout the other timeline. Okay. And throughout that entire idea, the idea that Enoch gets left behind, because he gets left behind from essentially the 30s to the 60s or the 70s. That's a 40-year period where everything he's supposed to do gets done. So, which also suggests that possibly, the next stop in the 70s, might have. So essentially, what we're seeing here is that Sybil leaves a contingent behind for 40 years as well. She jumps to the 70s, which pulls the S.H.I.E.L.D. team to the 70s. And then they all, but by that time, her contingent that was left behind has done with Hydra what Enoch is secretly doing with S.H.I.E.L.D. And brilliant that Enoch never makes enough waves to be noticed in that time. Because Enoch is simply being a good anthropologist.
Right.
Let's face it, they know he's an anthropologist in this era. There's no reason for them to doubt that he's here, as he's doing his anthropology. He has the perfect cover, and I still to this day wonder if he ever met himself in that retro timeline. It's like, hello. Well, there's a time travel paradox at play here, but maybe he was smart enough to avoid that. I don't know, but there is a plethora of Enoch-based fan fiction out there for you to write, kids. So please keep those cards and letters coming. Enoch gone too soon. Yes, he lived 8,000 years, but still gone too soon.
It would have been nice to see like a couple of Enoch cameos in Agent Carter. That would have been kind of cool.
Well, they didn't create the character until after Agent Carter's
death,
so that's the problem. And what I will say, interestingly enough, there is a reference to the bar in Agent Carter, because there is a bar that they do go to. And I think they called it Callahan's, which is an odd name for a bar, but maybe Koenig would have seemed odd to them. And they do reference the first time they go there when Phil's geeking out about it, that, he heard Dooley had his own booth there, which, again, is got to be weird for Sousa. It's like, dude, Dooley died serving his country. Please don't fan gush about him, okay? Because that's not cool. But Sousa never brings that up
because he's too much of a gentleman.
He is too much of a gentleman, which is something that we get a lot of in this episode.
Yeah.
He is a gentleman. He is a kind man and a good man, and and that really comes out a lot in the next episode, too. I mean, all across the episodes, Sousa being just a great person is intrinsic into the story of the Agent's Shield introduction of the character. And, it's a little weird when I say, because he's so old-timey, he, does these kinds of things. But at the same time, it's like, no, I don't think it's because he's old-timey. It's because he's just a decent human being.
Yeah.
And he knows how to show compassion and care to people around him. And I like that about him. But in the actual plotline of this episode, because we've talked a lot around it. So in the storyline, Sousa and Mac board the ship. They realize that obviously Nathaniel Simmons and Deke have left the Zephyr. They know that Gemma, now of course, prior to this, Nathaniel has tried to essentially root out what's in Simmons's mind using various technology, but of course the technology they have is defeating him. And that effectively results in Simmons's mind being wiped, which is problematic. Because, of course, we remember last episode where, he says they were trying to find Fitz, and she says, "Who's Fitz?"
Right.
And that's the thing. But
I wonder if this was some sort of escape hatch piece of code that if the device is ever sort of tampered with in a certain way, that it'll just wipe her memory clean for a week or something.
Well, yeah, that's definitely the thing. Well, and clearly that was what the plan was. Is like, if someone tries to get too close, you just shut it all down. You just, turn her in, give her, severe retrograde amnesia, and she knows Shakespeare, but she don't know her own name. That's the idea. And not anterior grade amnesia, retrograde amnesia. Anterior grade is when you can't form new memories, and that is the worst one. You'd think that the anterior grade is the retrograde is the bad, but the anterior grade, that is the bad one, because that's when you get those 51st dates kind of stuff. It's like, I wake up every morning and I think it's the same day, and people are weirdly enough humoring this instead of trying to find a way to solve the problem. Anyway, but that's a really messed up film. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I know it's love and kind of love, and I guess it's supposed to be based on some kind of a true story, but it's also a little creepy. But also, I don't want to say it's super creepy, because obviously, people can meet someone and care about someone. I believe that you can meet someone and care about someone the first time you meet them, and then to be committed to building this relationship. But I just feel that there's always going to be an obscure power dynamic in that. But at the same time within it, it's like, well, just because there's that weird power dynamic doesn't mean that someone's going to exploit it. Even though obviously in 51st States, on the 51st States, he is totally exploiting that power dynamic, and that is creepy as F.
But also at the same time, it's like you're in Groundhog's Day and the other person is stuck in purgatory. It's got to be exhausting for the other person too. Like, my God.
Except he's not in Groundhog's Day. It's just
she is. She is.
Well, except she's
right. The world
she's
changes around her, but to her, she wakes up being the same person. So it's like a reverse Groundhog Day where the world isn't different, but the world isn't the same, but you are.
Exactly. It's a reverse Groundhog Day, and that's its own special heck.
Right. Yeah, no. But like, it's not easy for the Adam Sandler character either. Like, how does someone deal with that? That seems impossible.
Oh, no. Well, let me put it this way: when he actually starts to care about her and to really try to sort of figure out his situation with her, then it's like, oh, now he has to step up and be this man. But when it was honestly just him trying to score with this random lady, then it's almost kind of like not. Then it's kind of like
wait,
then it's Groundhog Day at its worst when Bill Murray is literally just building the perfect day just to sleep with Andie MacDowell, and it's like, dude, that's not cool. And it only gets better when Bill Murray realizes not to be horrible as a person and just try to better himself as a person, so that maybe Andie MacDowell might like him as a person, unrelated to him just trying to score with her. But yeah. But anyway, so Simmons' brain is breaking down, and Deke is trying to stick with her, and Deke does a very fun impression of Fitz, which is I enjoyed. And Simmons thinks he's doing James Bond, which is, again, how you know it's retrograde amnesia, because she knows what James Bond is. She just doesn't know who Fitz is.
Right.
So, retrograde amnesia is weird, honestly. I would say, like, anterograde amnesia makes sense in the way we think about how memories and ideas form. Retrograde amnesia is kind of this thing that it works completely opposite of any mechanical structure that we would think should exist in the brain, where the data that is lost is personal data, which suggests that the personal data is stored elsewhere from other data. But then, of course, we believe at times that all we are is the data that makes up our lives. So if you had all your data, but you were still you, but somehow you lost the meaning of that data, that'd be freaking weird. But yeah. So, but that's the, and for what it's worth, in this entire series or this entire season, we are looking at that question of what makes you human. Between May coming back from near death and now having this feeling of empathy that is so profound, to the point where when all the shield bases are destroyed, she is, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, just, a million voices crying out all at once and then silenced, and that is such a thing with this character, because of course she is the character that was always the most stoic, the most in control.
Yeah.
The one who never let herself be pulled out of that place of control. And now she is the one completely out of control. And, and then you have Phil again. Although I noticed something, that's the next episode, but, he's not Phil. As I say, he's Max Coulson. He's Android Coulson. At most he's Agent Coulson. Where it's first name Agent.
Right.
And that is the difference between him and who he was. And I do like the reference in this when they're building the device to catch Garrett, that's his name. When they're building the device to get Garrett, it says, "Yeah, I remember. I lost a hand the first time we lost this. Wow, remember when that was we thought that was a big deal." And and of course this is what's always great about it is, they always do pull back, that little bit of interesting humor and comedy within it that is not exactly what we thought it was going to be, but also a little bit more than what we were expecting. And I like how they do that here. It works out nicely, especially when they do catch Garrett. And I love Yo-Yo now just being a straight-up speedster.
Yeah.
I think that is and granted, I know, at least as far as I know, I don't know, I haven't read anything with Yo-Yo in it in a long time. It kind of goes counter to what her power was, because it was this idea of, adjusting the paradox of you move out, but then you have to return back. And now she is just a speedster, which is one of these things where it's like, oh, now she's just a regular speedster. It's like, well, yeah, but that's also infinitely more powerful. And also one of the single most devastating powers in any universe is the speedster power. Because, when you get to take 4 moves to the other guy's 1, that is overpowered. That was the old thing with the old celerity rules, was every time you spent, in Vampire the Masquerade, every time, I don't know if you ever played any role-playing games, Mozz, but every time...
Dungeons and Dragons, yeah.
Yeah, but basically it was like so for celerity, if you had 5 celerity, and you spent a point, you would get 5 moves to the other guy's 1.
My God, that's crazy.
Oh, it gets even crazier, because you could spend up to 5 points if you were an old enough generation. So suddenly you could have 25 moves to every other character's 1 with that power. Now, there was something they did with werewolves that would give them something similar, but the idea was basically Vampire the Masquerade was a game that never really considered people gaming the rules, so that they said, well, if I put all my points in X and Y, I'm now Quicksilver, and I can just slaughter everybody. And although it makes sense, it also made for some really great OP characters back in the early rules. And I'm actually using the second generation rules. Like the first generation rules, they were even crazier. Like original celerity rules were basically if you had 5 celerity and you spent 1 blood vessel, you would get that many moves. But they didn't have it that you could spend multiple blood. And then, secondary rules, you could spend multiple blood vessels. And it got crazy, but it was fun. I love Vampire the Masquerade. It's a really great game. Only 1 style of dice, which is something I love in any game. If I don't have a bunch of different dice, I like simplicity in my dice rules. Because basically, I don't want to have to figure out what the other die is for this. It's like, ugh. Just give me simple dice, simple rules. Let's play a game.
I can understand that.
Anyway, but that's that. So yeah, so now she's a super speedster, and so when Garrett pops into because this is the thing, is apparently they know the lighthouse, even though it was made in the 1970s, is so heavily reinforced. Because obviously this was apparently a spot that was meant to handle getting a direct hit from several atomic bombs. that they must have designed it with that idea in mind. That, look, this is supposed to be the thing that survives. And so, now why you build that near water, God only knows. But they did. I'm sure there's a reason for that, but probably they got like certain nuclear generators in there that need the cooling powers of the water or something. But anyway, but it is designed to survive multiple heavy level attacks that they know nothing the Chronicoms can attack them with is going to be effective. Which is that, which again goes into this interesting thing with Enoch always having been there, or as he says, as I've always been. That, which again makes you wonder if he once met himself in the past. So yes, I've always been here because I've always done this because this is part of my life cycle. I didn't tell everyone about it because it didn't seem relevant at the time, but
yeah, you didn't ask.
That when it gets to it, he says, "Oh yes, and by the way, when you're building this lighthouse, let me tell you some of the things you might want to consider: invasion, space lasers, craziness of all sorts and designs." And that I think is a brilliant bit of meta commentary that might be a part of the story too. But they know they can't blow up the lighthouse, so they send in Garrett to put in Chronicom bombs in certain strategic points to blow it up. And then, of course, after they catch Garrett, and I love how they catch Garrett because they build the handcuffs. They can't build the walls, but they can build handcuffs that have the same effect, so the guy can't get off of it. It's like, oh, what? You just think I'm just going to teleport into those? It's like, no, I was actually hoping that that they might teleport onto you, and then comes, slaps the cuffs on them, and then he can't teleport. And then, of course, when he calls to Nathaniel's and say, "Hey, man, don't blow it up yet. I got to figure out what I'm going to do." He's like, "Nope, sorry, gonna blow it up now anyway."
Yeah, see, now this is the part that I had a problem with. How quickly Garrett is turned, how easily he's just, and how, he doesn't expect that the plan is bigger than him. Like, doesn't, it's just like, oh, okay, well, I'm so upset that he didn't, take care of me like he said he would.
Yeah, but literally that's, and he says that. It's like,
but just because he says it doesn't mean it. I'm satisfied with the storytelling.
No. But the thing is that's the thing. It's like they showed him a future where S.H.I.E.L.D. abandoned him, where S.H.I.E.L.D. couldn't get him out, and that's what made him turn to Hydra.
Yeah, but how did he not see that this is his error, his mistake, his fault, and he screwed up.
First off, he's probably a bit of a narcissist to start with, so it's never his fault. So, honestly, let me put it to you this way. A guy who will switch sides from S.H.I.E.L.D. to Hydra will switch from Hydra back to S.H.I.E.L.D.
I don't know. I just felt like that turn deserved a bit more time, a bit more exposition. It would have been fun to see that happen.
Yeah, but, I think the point is, and for what it's worth, it's not like they immediately trust him either. It's literally just, we have no other option but to trust him.
Yeah.
That he actually proves trustworthy is telling about his character, because he's going to switch sides because he already did it once. He joined S.H.I.E.L.D. to be a good guy.
Yeah.
He then joins Nathaniel because he's decided that these guys are going to help him. He's not.
Yeah, but I think he was also a lot like Malik in that, the whole "we're gonna save the world" is just a pretty PR campaign so he can be the one that the world needs saving from.
Yeah, but if it doesn't do you any good to save the world if you don't get to be saved too. In the circular logic of it, it's like, well, I just want to be. I'd like to be saved. I'd like to not blow up, if that's fine by everybody. And that is why he makes the turn. I can see what you're saying, but it seems very fast, and it does seem very fast. But at the same time, I don't think Garrett is a deep enough character to need, a lot of betrayal before he turns. I get the feeling that the first time you betray this guy's like, yeah, nope, I'm done. I'm out. You know, he's like, yeah, okay, I see what you guys did there. I don't want to be a part of this. And they basically tell him, you know, it's a different timeline now. So here, you know, you were going to, and essentially it's the idea, you were going to get abandoned by someone. Someone was going to decide that your life was not worth the mission.
Yeah, maybe maybe his fate is always going to be that because his karma is weighing too heavy on one side, and you know, no matter how many ripples you create, the waves that you've already created with your life are really hard to fight back. So no matter how much good you try to do, you're going to get it in the end.
And he does get it in the end, because they do teleport back to the bar, and he gets shot immediately because apparently all the agents that were in the field at just the right moment, who all had the parts, all showed up, which is an interesting. Yeah.
That was another one of those things. It's like, really, they just shot him out of the blue. Like, everybody, I'm sure, was randomly showing up. Their first question isn't like, hey, were you also supposed to be here? They're like, oh my god, after the 30 people that showed up before, somebody new showed up. Shoot him!
He actually does draw his gun.
Oh, he does. Oh,
he does, yes. So everyone drew on him, and then he drew his. Gotcha. And the other agents held back because, again, this is part of who Garrett is. And for what it's worth, let's remember Garrett is super young in this. Garrett should have had years as an established S.H.I.E.L.D. agent prior to having this moment happen to him. So he was probably always a hair chigger. And for what it's worth, he's a pilot. And he's a 1980s pilot, so he's like all Top Gun. He is all Goose and Maverick, you know. He wants to get those G's and do those turns and do what he has to do. You know, he's never, you know, and that's one of the things they say is that he's got the highest scores. That doesn't mean he's the best agent. You know, having the highest scores as a pilot doesn't mean you're the best agent. It just means you're good at flying things. You know, Howling Man Murdoch certainly was the best pilot you're ever going to meet, but that didn't mean he was a reliable source in your as to who you want leading the mission. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, man, there's just so much that goes on in this episode. But they go to the bar. Garrett gets shot. The various people, like, they have their confrontation, but they basically explain who they are and what they're here, and they say, do you have an 084 as well? And I'm so mad that the minute they mentioned the 084, that just the minute they started time travel in 084s, the original 084 we saw in this series was this weird, crazy Hydra laser. But when they find it, it's embedded in the rock in an ancient temple. And they say this thing has to be several thousand years old. But they pull it out, and it's not. And they start saying, oh, well, there were Hydra scientists all over the place. This is Brazil. The Hydra scientists came here too. Yada, yada, yada. But it was just sort of this weird thing. It's like, this would be a great time to suggest that, that laser was from the... They could have tied that nicely, and they didn't. They chose to leave that thread untied. And so I was hoping when the 084s are coming up, they were going to reference the original 084 we saw in the series. They did not. But they do have a bunch of other things that they put together in this moment. And then when, and it's just a bunch of pieces, but of course when Simmons is there, when Simmons shows up, she starts putting them together because, of course, Simmons, Mac, and Daisy come in, and Sousa, they come in through the door. Because that's why they got freaked out when they just teleported in, because, all of a sudden these people teleport in, so naturally people teleport into your safe house, you draw your guns. Because you don't know what's going on, you just know that all the S.H.I.E.L.D. bases just got destroyed from outer space. So you draw your guns. And then when Garrett goes for his gun, he gets a bullet in the head.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. You draw your gun, that's what happens.
Yeah, exactly. You see someone draw, if the guy's already got his gun up,
It might be too late.
Well, first of all, it probably is already too late.
Right.
Or they're drawing their gun to be cautious, and presumably you've gone to a safe space in this moment. So really, Garrett should have just threw his hands up in the air, like he just didn't care.
Right.
But he cared, and he grabbed for his gun first, and that's what got him shot. So no sudden moves when they already got their guns on you. Word to the wise. Okay. Yeah. But Simmons puts all the pieces together. They open up the device that opens the wormhole, and boom, in comes Fitz. And that's the end of the episode. He takes up his
they talk a little bit at the end too, don't they? Isn't there
well, maybe they do, maybe they don't.
All right. I guess we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the next episode, because this is, we're gonna get you're gonna get your money's worth, kids, but we gotta get our money's worth too, because a couple of things you might not have considered as you're listening to this episode is it might not have the best audio quality. And hey, I know I've bought my headphones at the dollar store too. I do it. They cost $1. They last 3 weeks. But you know what? It's $1. It's 3 weeks. It gets me through the day. But sometimes you want to listen and have it be of a quality that is worth it to you. And for moments like that, you should go to tweakedaudio.com. That's TWEAKED. Is that right? I think so. AUDIO.com. They have simply primo audio headsets and whatnot for you to utilize. And if you use the promo code Southgate, you will get a discount on the purchase you make. And as I understand it, all of our advertisers, you use that promo code Southgate, it's going to get you something out of it. So, you know what? I would recommend, no matter where you are, if they say, hey, do you got a coupon code? Just write it in Southgate. See what happens. It might be in your best advantage. Meanwhile, over at huntakiller.com, Michelle Gray, she is a detective, and she's trying to crack a cold case. Kind of could use some help. A woman's working hard, but, cold cases, they don't crack themselves. If you would like to help her, you can head on over to huntakiller.com, sign up for their package. They're going to send you a box of clues, newspaper articles, bits of thread, weird things that you may not even know what you're supposed to do with, but if you can figure it out, you win the game, and you help out Michelle Gray solve this cold case. It's kind of like getting an escape room delivered to your house every week. Every month. Well, I guess it depends on what plan you're on. Maybe they have more than one. Check it out and use the Southgate code as your coupon. Meanwhile, if none of that interests you, go down into our show notes, find that Amazon link. Just go there. Just go to Amazon, buy whatever the heck you want. I don't care what you buy. It helps us out. And if you are looking for something interesting while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book on Amazon, because you can get it for the Kindle or you can get it in paperback. And it's a pretty good story. It is actually written by the folks here at Southgate Media Group, where we basically told all of our tales of being podcasters. So that might be something interesting and worth your time to read. And in the meantime, if anyone would like to talk to you, Mozz Manzoor, about what we have discussed tonight, what they can do for entertainment, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzoor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzoor. That's MozzManzoor.
And, of course, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email the way our mothers and fathers back in the 80s used to do at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And you know what? You can follow me on Twitter if that is your desire. I don't have anything at the moment to live tweet. Everything now is streaming. And the one thing that was suggested to me to live tweet, I can't live tweet because for whatever reason, AT&T doesn't carry the AT&T TV does not carry the CW, even though they're owned by the same company.
My word.
Madness. So, but if you follow me on the Twitter, I am at Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIESSER. Look for the 2 E's right there in the middle. For what, Mozz?
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the penultimate. Take a drink.
Whoop, whoop.
Episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You've come through it and you've enjoyed yourself. And our noble heroes, our noble warrior heroes, will be back next week for the final episode. Here, enough said.